Hey, welcome back to Tech Show Today. This is our midday episode on Friday, March 18th. I'm Adriana Linares. I'm a legal technology trainer and consultant, and I'm lucky enough to be the vice chair of this year. My pal Dennis over here and I have had a dream for 10 years to do live video streaming, and we want to make sure and thank the Legal Talk Network for making this possible. So thanks, guys. Dennis, tell everybody about yourself.
So I'm an in-house counsel for MasterCard's digital payments and labs group. I'm also the chair of the ABA's Legal Technology Resource Center, and a million years ago, I was on the Tech Show board.
I think that's where we became friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Do you want to tell everybody who you are?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joshua Lennon. I'm the lawyer in residence at Clio.
That's very good. What does it mean to be the lawyer in residence? I know people must ask you that all the time, and you probably have a million funny ways to describe it. But
it's actually a phenomenally made-up title. So when I joined Clio, they were a great organization, but they didn't have any lawyers working for them, even though they serviced about 80,000 law firms back then. We're up to like 160,000 now. And so they brought me in to kind of be a sample customer, like an in-house attorney, but not in the way that Dennis is, but more like how do attorneys think? Are we using the right messaging? Is this feature set up the same way? And the role has just evolved constantly over time to where I work with Clio's product team on features and making sure that we give it that little special twist that lawyers need to make it the right tool for them. I work with our support team to make sure that we're adequately addressing the concerns and needs of our customers. I work with our sales team on translating the special speak that lawyers have so that way we can see if we're actually a good fit for them or if we might want to recommend a different product. So the role just continues to grow as Clio grows. It's been quite an adventure. 4 years now.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You guys
Have
do
you
a great
found a
job.
way to explain to lawyers what the cloud means yet?
Yes, actually I do. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology defines the cloud as distributed ubiquitous computing over continuous internet connections.
Okay, and then they all look at you and,
And-
say,
and
and can you
lawyers-
explain
What?
that?
Yeah.
Lawyers say, "Oh, thank God you finally told us. I finally get
We
it."
got it figured out.
And so what that really means is it used to be you would have one device, and on that device would live your programs and your data, like your documents, your PDFs, and things like that. And what we've done is we've taken the hard drive from that one device and put it on the other side of the internet. So that hard drive still exists, but it's out on the internet now. And that means then that rather than being able to access that information on one device, I can now use the internet to access that same series of programs and documents and data across any device, so long as I log in securely. And that's the cloud. It's just moving your hard drive to the other side of the internet.
And it seems like you all, and tell me who are the members of the LCCA. Tell us about the LCCA
Okay.
and who the members are and sort of the notion that created this organization, because I think it's
Certainly.
amazing and great.
So the LCCA was founded a couple years ago, back when the cloud was really just starting to become an option for a lot of law firms and solo attorneys out there. And so there wasn't a lot of guidance. It was actually quite a unique moment because, again, we're taking that information that normally resides in a law firm and we're putting it someplace else. And questions of confidentiality, of security, of privacy were all being raised. And there wasn't a lot of guidance at the time from bar associations. So the LCCA, which stands for the Legal Cloud Computing Association, was founded by some of the technology companies that are out there, including competitors, all working together to become an educational force for law firms and for lawyers, for bar associations and law schools, and even for other technology companies on what are the special, unique privacy and confidentiality needs of attorneys, as well as, and this is something a lot of people don't think about when it comes to cloud computing, the idea of file longevity that isn't always addressed by technology when they look at the legal industry. And so we started putting together guidance. It was utilized by a lot of bar associations and law firms in creating their standard of reasonable security. We saw ethics opinions now come out of close to 20 states. And so now the LCCA has come back and said, now that we kind of have an industry standard.
There's a movement.
Yep, there's a movement, an industry standard that law firms should be seeking a reasonable expectation of privacy when it comes to choosing a technology. What really is a reasonable expectation of privacy? And as we all know, as lawyers or people in the legal space, that what's reasonable changes over time. So back at Legal Tech New York, a lesser conference,
Yes, much
Yeah.
lesser.
Yeah.
Yep, other conference.
we came together, the LCCA, and announced a draft security doctrine and said this is where we think is today's current reasonable expectations for privacy and security, and tell us what everybody thinks. And that was a little over a month ago. And so we've gotten commentary from bar associations, from industry groups, from law firms, from law schools,
From consultants.
Yeah. And we've applied all of that to now come out with our version 1.0 of the cloud security doctrine. And it's something that can be used by law firms and legal technology companies to know what is the current best practice when it comes to cloud computing.
So, and I want to mention the current members, and I'm sure this will probably grow over time, but according to the website, it's Clio, Direct Law, Rocket Matter, Net Documents, Calendar Rules, NextPoint, and On It. So you've got, some of the top cloud, legal specific cloud-based services right there in that group, and you all came together. Said, okay, these are the standards that at a minimum should be met. And I think where this is really helpful is when you go actually look at the standards. I mean, this is a great place for lawyers to start and be able to ask the right questions to the companies or the services that they're considering. And I really like this because these are the types of standards that you would be asking to non-legal specific.
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
Like that's
yeah.
kind of
Yeah, it's-
super helpful for them.
It's definitely framed in such a way that both legal specific concerns can be met, but also basic security concerns can be met using these standards. And so they're open to anyone. You can go to our website, which is legalcloudcomputingassociation.org. I know it's really long, but you can click on the standards, and they're framed by topic. So where to really dive into them, and they focus on things like the jurisdiction of storage for your information, access to that information even if you are no longer a paying customer, destruction of data when you do leave the service, agreements and contractual terms of confidentiality, and the ability to vet your service provider over time, because we really do believe that security is not something that you kind of set and forget. It's something that has to grow and evolve and be maintained. And so these standards are, again, version 1.0 of that. And we will continue to work with all of the stakeholders in our industry on revising and building and evolving these standards to keep giving the best guidance possible.
And with the ABA's annual tech survey, I looked at the cloud computing area and wrote some summary of the results. And what was really interesting to me, not in a positive way, was that lawyers care about the issues of confidentiality and security, but we had a list of maybe 10 or 12 basic security precautions, and the highest score of any of those was 40%.
Yeah.
And so I see here on this list, as you said, you can use it as a checklist and say, these are the things I need to be looking at. These help me ask questions. And what I do almost every day, I'm dealing with a lot of these things in my work. And then, I don't know, I was thinking that there are notions like SLAs and stuff like that. I don't know whether that's addressed in this or that would be a different something you would do down the line.
Yeah, so SLAs are actually very common in the software as a service industry. So the ability to access a service online, and we do this for everything. Facebook is a software as a service. Netflix is a software as a service. So it's in the legal space, what do I really require from my software as a service? And an SLA is a service level agreement, and it's a promise of how strong and robust the service is going to be. So Clio, for example, has a 99.9% SLA guarantee.
Right. You probably wouldn't want to start using a service that has like 29.9.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of bad.
Yeah, almost across all industries, the standard is around 98%
Sure.
uptime.
Yep.
And we've decided having access to your legal files is very clearly mission critical for law firms. We have to go to the next
High
level,
standards.
99.9%. Yeah.
That's good. Let's talk real quick. Let's just rattle off the 5 sections
Okay.
of the security standards. If you want to just say a sentence or two about each one. So the first one is just the scope of standards.
Yeah.
Scope and purpose. And I think you just described the whole scope and purpose.
Yeah, it's to provide guidance and to create a discussion point, not just for law firms, but also for the regulators and the Bar Association, and also for other legal technology companies. I think this is the standard we all have to rise up to now. And so even if you're not a member of the LCCA, we welcome you to come and take a look at these standards.
Sure.
Give feedback and guidance on it. We even welcome you to apply for membership. We have an open membership invitation right
Excellent.
now. We've gotten some really great interest from not just legal startups, but some really established players in like Fortune 500 technology companies. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, I'd say.
But the scope is, let's take a look at what is cloud computing, how are we utilizing it, and whom needs to be involved in the discussion around them. And the next point?
Is physical and environmental measures. And to me, on the cloud, I always think if you can show lawyers like a 3-minute video of a tour of an actual data center, and compare it to where they have their servers sitting.
The closet in the
kitchen.
back of their office,
Sometimes
right?
I've actually been in a law firm, and I am not even kidding, where the server, which is just a workstation, was next to the microwave in the kitchen.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
I don't make this stuff up.
Who
This
poured coffee on our server? Oh.
And I think if you actually go in to a real data center, you go like, oh, I feel really good about the security of my information.
Well, modern data centers are, one, secure. They tend to be isolated physically from wherever they're located by fences and things like that, for example, guards. They also tend to have additional levels of security. So one of the data centers that's used by an LCCA member, for example, has a man trap. This is actually one of the coolest things ever. So it's kind of like an airlock. You have to get permission to go through a door, and then that door closes behind you. And then there's like a biometric scanner for like your thumbprint. And if that doesn't line up, you're just trapped there. They just call the cops. Somebody goes in. And what's kind of embarrassing is...
I heard they tickle people to death when they get stuck in
I
there.
don't know, because I'm not allowed to go in, right? Just people aren't given access to that. But also modern data centers include things that most law offices don't have, like redundant power supplies, which is another thing that leads to that SLA guarantee of 99.9% uptime. It's not just physical security, but also operational security that you just don't have when you just plug your server into the outlet in your kitchen by your microwave.
Next to the microwave.
Yeah, the first time I was in a data center, first thing was how cold it was in there and how loud it was.
Yeah.
And then I saw these cables, and there was this part of me who said, if I touch this, will I actually be touching the internet? And so I had this impulse to go grab for the cable.
They now
but I
have
held
cages
back.
over the cables right after your visit. That's when we put those in. Yeah.
And so the third one is data integrity and measures. So this covers encryption and testing.
This covers encryption, but it also covers validation of data, right?
Really good.
So the ability to pull data back if, say, a secretary accidentally deletes an email that was supposed to be filed, right? The ability to go back and ensure the integrity of your data over time. And one of the things we talked about was data longevity, and most law firms don't think about that when it comes to legal technology. But if you think back, nobody here is using the same software they were using 10 years ago, right? But there are a lot of legal documents that carry forward much longer than that 10-year period, right?
Yep.
Wills that you made 15 years ago can still be deemed valid. Conflict checks that have to be run against, the 40 years of your career. And so data longevity and validation of that is really important when you go to an electronic environment. Paper lasts. That's the one big benefit about paper. So how do we make electronic data last as long as paper? And that's one of the things we talk about as part of these standards.
That's great.
Users and access control.
Yes.
And I think that the cloud model does give you a lot more control, and you can enforce passwords in much better ways. Less stuff leaks out, it seemed to me. So
when used correctly, right? We do know the biggest weakness in, quite frankly, digital data, whether it's on the cloud or in your office, is user error.
Sure, of course.
And so you can actually design and utilize systems that prevent a lot of user error out there right now. things like strong passwords, validation tools of identity, like two-factor authentication.
Knowing who logged in, when, and how long they were
Right.
logged in, and where did they log in
right?
from.
Right.
Yeah. One of the neat things that I'm just going to use a Clio example that Clio does is we have an app that lives on your phone, right? But that app can have its own password, right? Just a little PIN
Sure,
number.
yep, mhm.
And so that means if I hand the phone, to like a niece or a nephew and they're playing Angry Birds and then they click over to the Clio app, they can't get into the files.
Right.
They can't, mess up my files because there's that extra little user authentication there. And that's
great.
those little touches that actually protect you as a legal service provider. And those are some of the things we talk about there.
And it sounds like we've talked a lot already about the 5th section, which is terms of service and privacy policy. You've talked about uptime. Why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe ownership of data?
Absolutely.
And, like what the standards say about something like that, because lawyers are obviously always very concerned with that.
Very
one
concerned about that,
topic.
and rightfully so, because as we all know, lawyers don't actually own most of the data they work with. That's clients' data.
Right.
And so making sure that they don't have a misstep and give away client data is very important. So it should be very clear in the terms of service for any cloud service or any other technology solution you acquire that they cannot hold the data you input for ransom.
Hostage, right?
Yeah. And if you look at a lot of the legacy software out there, they still store data in a proprietary format and will charge you an exit fee to get your client's data back. And that's just ridiculous. And so that's one of the things we talk about and address. As a bare minimum, it's your client's data. No vendor should be allowed to hold it against you.
Yeah, and I think that, and I often focus on the format you can get something back in and how meaningful that is. Because sometimes, like you say, it's a proprietary format.
Yeah.
You can get your data, but to actually use it in the way you would want, you have to recreate the whole cloud environment.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the whole
that's-
system that it runs on.
Well, that's not entirely true anymore. So one of the hidden benefits of the cloud is it operates on the same internet-wide standards as the internet. Wow, that was awkward.
Nice.
But what that means, though,
Well
is
said.
the data can actually jump between services very easily. So, 3 years from now, you're done with whatever tool you're using or something new and shinier and better is out there. If you're using a cloud system, that data should be easily portable. It's never in a closed format.
Right.
It's in an open format.
Oh, so the benefit now of Amazon Web Services, Azure, Rackspace, those sorts of things, that if I'm moving to a different provider who's in Amazon Web Services, maybe that flip is really easy, and maybe even between all of the standards, it's going to become
all of the
easy.
standards. So they're the International Standards Organization, which is a European thing, and they cover everything like railroad ties and things like that. They set standards, have come out with a couple really key digital standards that I think will help law firms preserve their data into the future. Things like what is an archival PDF, or what types of databases should we as an industry carry forward. And the LCCA is committed to providing data back in these ISO formatted standards. So that way, if you leave one of us, you can easily jump to a competitor and move your data in and be up and running instantly.
And let me tell you, that makes life for consultants so much easier than it used to be. So on behalf of the consultants out there, I'd like to say thank you.
Oh, it's just a hidden benefit.
And then actually, the concern people have about holding their own data,
It loosens up. Because you
we're
can take
we're
it
in
out.
a better space because all the data that you've wanted to keep off the cloud because you had it on floppy disks or whatever is actually inaccessible to you now.
Yeah, who
But
has
the
floppy
fact that
disk
it's-
anymore?
that it's
Yeah.
out there on the web is actually a better thing.
in a non-proprietary format, and
Right.
that's just such a relief to a lot of people. Well, Joshua, thank you so much for coming by and chatting with us. Really appreciate
Thank you.
it.
I know I get a little technical, so thank you
No,
for
we
letting
like
me run
it,
away
but let
with
me
that.
make sure we remind everybody to go check out the LCCA standards, and it's legalcloudcomputingassociation.org. If you have any questions about that, I saw that there's a contact form on there. Of course, you can always reach out to Joshua through the internet. Through the internet. How about through Twitter?
Through Twitter.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's at Joshua Lennon, and that's Lenon. And I'm pretty active on Twitter. It's my
Yeah.
social media poison.
Yeah,
So
all of us.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Adriana.
it.
Thank you, Dennis.
Hey, Adriana, you want to talk about Beer for Bloggers
Sure, yeah,
and
mention it
Taste
real
the Tech
quick.
Show and
Yeah.
remind people to do that tonight?
Tonight's our Taste of Tech Show dinners. I think there's still some space left. If you're interested, stop by the concierge booth and sign up.
And Beer for Bloggers is at 5.
5 in Kitty O'Shea's?
Yep.
that
Actually,
right?
I think it's just in the lobby of the Hilton.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, in the lobby bar.
Yeah,
Great.
in the lobby bar, and always a great time.
The unnamed bar.
The unnamed it does not have a name. The no name bar, the no name saloon. Thanks everybody. We'll hope to see you there.
Have a great tech show.